What straps?
Cool.
Who cares?
We're recording. So we were just having a conversation about straps, and this is primarily as a result of my my failed RDL sets, which is the only workout video I've recorded in 4 months. And it had to be the one where everything went wrong. So we were just talking about the fact that essentially we've played around with different straps, and Khif's used like the figure of 8 ones and had a absolute nightmare with those. Was it, which pull session was that when you gave them a shot? Was that like a particular pull?
Yeah, I actually had the 285 for 5, and then the following week was 290 for 5. Yeah. And that was excellent. And then it was the week after that I done I just went straight for 300, and it felt like I'd pulled straight away, but it felt like 10 seconds before the weight had even moved off the ground. Yeah. And instantly it was just, you just knew it was not going to happen. And then as well, like when I tried to do like dead stop for my back offset, I kept losing the position with the straps. Do you know what I mean? Like one hand would end up over here and the other one was like still in position. It was, yeah. So I just cut it straight off then.
Have you had any nightmares with straps, George?
Never really. I once was in the gym and the owner, she offered me one of the hook ones. So I thought, you know what, let's try and give it a go. I don't know what you actually call them. They're like, they've got, yeah, almost like that, where you kind of hook it underneath the actual barbell itself. And I tried it and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't, it's just something I couldn't get used to. It didn't feel comfortable. I just didn't feel safe doing it. It just felt weird pulling that way. So I just stick to the normal straps. I've never had any problems though, luckily. Nothing's ever snapped.
Yeah, I've been the same. Like I've never had any snap really, but no, I can't imagine it's a nice feeling anyway.
Well, the thing is I knew it was going to snap because it was already like, you know, halfway kind of broken, but I didn't have any others. And of course, when it like sentimentally attached to a certain strap, you just use it. So I kind of went down for the second rep and I absolutely knew that it was going to go. And so I almost prepared myself for it. So I almost like put more tension on the side where I knew that it was probably going to hold, so that I could like start to let it down, because otherwise, and I already had my leg out of the way. But the good thing, I actually like upon the set finishing, I was like, thank God that I didn't hit my leg, because like, I've had, and I see it with some of your sets sometimes, Keith, and I'm like, fucking hell, please don't do that. Where I aggressively dumped a bar and it caught like my upper thigh and above my knee. And yeah, mate, that was not good. I couldn't do anything for a long, I couldn't even walk properly for a long time. Yeah, like I couldn't RDL for about 3 months because the swelling above my knee. I couldn't, you know, the bar path of an RDL where it comes across your upper thigh and down. I just couldn't do it because it would hit like the bruise, and it was so swollen. I thought I'd fuck my bodybuilding career as well, because I thought like I'd have like visible like inflammation above my knee. And still, even in off season now, when I have more fluid above my kneecap, there's still a little bit more fluid in one side versus the other because of like the scar tissue. But when I'm on stage, you just can't see shit. So I was lucky.
I was going to ask, do you guys use the like longer straps? Like I've used some longer straps where I have to wrap it around the bar a little bit more. Do you like using the shorter straps?
AJ, what do you use?
I think I just used the standard length.
Is it?
It's like the ones the ones that I use are the they're like Thor heavy duty straps or something like that. They're called the yellow and black ones, and I do believe that they are a little bit longer, but I always find that I'll wrap it around twice and there'll always be a big bit hanging. Do you know what I mean? I'll never wrap it around to the point where it's like in somewhat like a fat grip kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I just want to know that I'm attached to the bar and that's really it kind of thing. So it'll always go around like, it'll probably just be the equivalent to your normal length straps by the time that I wrap it around. Do you know what I mean? But they're really the straps that I've always used. And like, I'm still on the first pair that I've had for probably a decent few years now anyway. So
do you use thumbless grip, or do you wrap your thumb round?
My thumb's always, I'm always like thumbs over. I can't hold anything for shit like normal.
See,
Yeah, I couldn't do that either.
That's so strange because I was the exact same. I used to hook my arm around like that, but now I put my thumb under.
Oh no!
Holding onto a bar, it feels so much better for me. I don't know why. I can't do it the other way now.
What about with like pull downs and stuff? Are you thumbless on pull downs, Khif?
It depends. I'll do thumbless if I'm using my straps. If I end up doing a set with no straps, I'll always do like a normal grip.
Okay.
And like a bent over row as well. Like a bent over row will be thumbless. Most things really. But definitely a deadlift, because I feel as if I can get much tighter with the straps rather than have to worry about holding onto the bar and also holding like onto the straps as well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just really feel it like uncomfortable. So
how things going for you at the moment in general, Khif? Like, where's body weight at? And I know that you got like a little bit sick recently. You don't ever sort of comment too much about it, but you got a little bit sick.
It was like I dropped like 6 pounds overnight because I was like keeping track of my scales, like the scale weight every single morning, just to kind of make sure that like I'll go through a phase where I'll want to know what my weight is at and what it's at, like not just one day and then weigh myself 2 weeks later and see if it's the same kind of thing. I want to know where really I am at. And I don't know, it was like it wasn't COVID or anything, do you know what I mean? It was like a really bad man flu kind of thing. And like I suffer from like migraines and that, and it just floored me. Like I got up one morning and it was actually one morning that I was dropping the car off. I was getting something done to the car and I came home and I literally just fell asleep on the couch and woke up and oh man, I was awful. Like migraine was so bad and I just wanted to sleep, no appetite, nothing. And then it was the following morning that I'd woke up and I was still feeling the same, and obviously out of curiosity I jumped on the scales and it was like 5-point-something pounds down, so stinking. But don't get me wrong, it's back now. Like it's back now. I'm fluctuating really between like 222 and 224, and that's like obviously in the morning, out of bed, toilet, and then jump on the scales. So that's like an okay kind of place, because even like last off season and that, I would really need to be like a good few meals in to see anything like that on the scales to be consistent anyway. So yeah, everything's going okay now. Like I'm glad that that's passed, but it's like I don't usually get ill often, but when I do, it just fucking kills me. Like it ends me. So
it's literally the exact same as me in this past week. Like this year, I've been ill twice, and the last time I remember being ill was like 2018. And this past week, I woke up in the morning and I just had like just a bunged up nose and just like straining around here and up here.
Oh,
and I was
I've
thinking,
had that so many times. Fucking sinuses.
I literally woke up and I was like, I don't want to do anything today. That was the first thing I thought about. So I tried to obviously do my normal routine, and I know if I'm not looking forward to my first meal, I know there's something wrong. And this past week, that first meal has just been, it's taken me about half an hour, 45 minutes to eat. And it's only 2 bagels, a tin of beans, and a packet of salmon. It's not like I'm eating massive amounts. It's a fairly straightforward, quick, easy meal. So it's been doing, I don't know. And then that sort of went away. My appetite was still slightly down, and then it sort of transferred into like a stomach bug, which again I had about 5-6 weeks ago. I had a stomach bug, and I picked up another one again this past week, and it's just really thrown me off, especially with the appetite. Like if I'm ill at the moment in terms of even having a cold, cough, or even just a little bit of an upset stomach, my appetite just goes to the shit, and I'm literally like forcing it in, which sometimes is quite bad, I must admit. But I don't want to be, losing weight. It took me a couple of weeks to regain what I lost when I was ill the first time round, and I just don't want that, especially at this point now, because it affects so much sessions. Like I actually, we spoke about it midweek, AJ, and I listened to what you said. I took that Wednesday off. I took the Tuesday off. Sorry, I took the Wednesday off as well, and I trained today. And just through being ill over the past couple of days, that session took a hit. Like today's session was very, very average. It took a massive hit. So it's just one of those ones where there's not much I can really do about it. But sorry, the dog started to bark. The dog fucking barks. So it just fucking ruins everything, man. It's so annoying. It really is annoying.
I feel like I've been on a moderately lucky run because there's been a few people getting sick and I've managed to not get sick really at all. I've had little things for sure, like little niggles and little issues. Like when my neck gets really tight, especially from work, I just get really, really bad, like headaches that just really throw my whole day off, to be honest. Like I can't focus for work. And then when I get into the gym, I just feel clammy. Like I can still train, but you just feel like almost like pressure in your head. I get them from not having relief through like my traps and my scapula, and then it affects my pressing stability. And so I've had little things like that. But besides that, luckily enough, honestly think just not being around other people has helped me quite a bit, because staying in a normal environment where I'm not, going near other people in the gym all the time. Like last winter, I got sick so many times. I got sick like 3-4 times before I started prep. But yeah, I do kind of get a little bit nervous about going back to the gyms and then being around everyone else's germs when you haven't built any resilience to that over the last 3 months.
Especially we haven't had the vaccine yet.
Yeah, no vaccine.
So, and I'm even worried when I get the vaccine, am I going to be ill again? Because some people have had, symptoms from just getting the vaccine. I'm sitting here thinking, fuck, am I going to get any symptoms? Is that going to throw me off for the next couple of days or so? I've already been thrown off twice this year already. It's just shit, really.
That's like one of the things, like everybody that you seem to hear who's getting the vaccine has ended up getting like 2 days afterwards is just going like down. Like my mum got her first one, and the day she got it, you just kind of started like, it was as if like she started deteriorating like as the day went on, and then the next day she was just couldn't do a single thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like seeing that is like making me think like I don't want it now. Like I don't want to fucking go through that.
Yeah.
But even at that, like a lot of people I think have been coming down with symptoms afterwards, so it's scary.
Yeah, for sure. Your latest shots are looking very good, Khif. That side chest you put up the other day looked tremendous. Looked like
that was
looked like you're in a really good spot.
I think this is probably like the kind of best shape that I've been throughout my off season. Because not that I get completely out of shape, but I would just be a bit fatter. But I'm trying to like get to a decent body weight as well as holding somewhat of like decent shape. Do you know what I mean? Like I've not got like the fear of getting fat or anything. Like I will put on weight, but at the same time, I want to still be in a good position. Like I still don't know if I'm competing this year or not, or what's happening, kind of thing. So as long as like training wise, as long as it's doing what it needs to be doing and is going very well, then the look and everything is just gonna have to like I'm trying to keep it as decent as possible. That was probably one of the worst sessions ever yesterday as well.
I like this shot. This is the best I've ever seen your side chest. It looks tremendous. Looks so fucking good. That's what I'm searching for. Like that. Like I need that. I need so much more there. That's where you've got such slabs of tissue, man. It just looks so good in a side chest.
Thank you. The only thing I like about that shot is it looks like I've got calves.
Hey, yeah.
Do you ever, Keith, do you ever on that shot, do you ever crunch down your abs a little bit, or do you like posing?
Nah, I try and like, I feel as if I try and crunch down my abs, I'll lose a lot of chest. So I'll come together too much rather than open up. I feel as if I can open up, I'll look bigger. If I crunch down, it's as if like, well, it really is what it is. Like I feel as if I become smaller, and the shot's a lot smaller. So
yeah, I've never pulled mine like that. I must admit, I've always crunched down on my abs, but
yeah,
obviously in an off season, the midsection is never going to look the greatest when you're putting away a ridiculous amount of food, regardless. So it's never going to look great. But I'm definitely going to try that next time, just see what it looks like, because it does. you know, that's the biggest thing I learned, is just kind of filling in the gaps with these poses. So especially a lot of people, they have, when they do the side chest, they have a massive gap between, you know, the, where can we say, like almost like this gap. So if I do a side chest here, like this arm bit would have a massive gap between there, and it just doesn't look good. So
Right
just
here.
That's like one of the other things as well. Like I used to always, when I used to hit a side chest, I would try and open up like my midsection, but at the same time I would try and like overcompensate this side, so I would come over too much. Whereas when I started putting this shoulder down and try and keep my chest up, then everything just looked a little bit more like kind of symmetrical as well. See, like the left shot, how my left, like obviously the far away chest is trying to kind of, that shoulder's trying to come over. Whereas like the shot on the right, it's all down and it looks like a little bit more balanced, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's such a small thing as well. Like that can change so much.
100%. Massively.
Yeah.
Glutes.
Yeah, the glutes. I'm just looking at that exact thing. The density in the legs is just.
Looking at the glutes. Do you do any direct glute work, Khifee?
Nah.
None at all. No.
Nah.
Wow.
I'll do like the closest thing that I'll do for things like that will just be like my things like barbell lunges, dumbbell split squats, and post squats. That's really the only things that I can think of that I'll get drive out of my glutes anyway.
Whilst squatting, do you use a lot of your glutes, or
it's quite a wide stance, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So. Like really only with post. I would probably use more glutes just to get me out of the hole. I think that's the only bit that I'll contract. But like that kind of small, tiny bit at the very bottom. But even at that, nah. Like
these are very good. Very, very good.
I think there's something to be said to get like just getting strong at a squat for the glutes though. I think a lot of like Ben Howard says he does like no direct glute work and focuses on just squat patterns and hip hinges, and he has some of the thickest glutes I've ever seen. He's not done a single hip thrust in his life, I don't think.
I mean, until 2020, I actually didn't do. I mean, my glutes have never been too bad in terms of the actual size of them. I think I've got just genetically quite bigger glutes. But before even my 2019 contest prep, I didn't really do a lot of glute work. I must admit, I didn't do nowhere near as what I do now. So I'm hoping that's gonna improve, hopefully. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you've never done glute work, but you still got, even just when you're shredded like this, your glutes look great, mate.
This was one of the this is one of the hardest things that I find is like with them shots anyway. It's like the sticking your glutes out rather than like bringing them in. Do you know what I mean? Like the way that you could look at like a shot like that is obviously like it is shredded, but at the same time, so an outsider would look at, say for instance, you tucked your glutes, you would look a lot more shredded, just because obviously it's like, see, like like something like that. I don't even know if this.
I'll find one with you tucking them.
Yeah, it's like obviously it just, you could say it looks more as like aesthetically pleasing, but I think that was one of the hardest things, was knowing whenever I turn like to the rear, is knowing that when I'm hitting a back double bicep, I am contracting, like I am the connections there with my glutes to be able to stick it out, but obviously like connect with them really well. That was the biggest thing I struggled with, like last year anyway. No, the year before last year. Keep forgetting we're in 2021. But I mean, just connecting with them.
With the BMBF, obviously, when I competed in the BMBF, that's what I got marked down for, the scared dog almost.
Right.
Tucking the glutes, because I understand it, because you work so hard to get those glutes in. You know, like it's probably for me one of the proudest things to be dug out is definitely the glutes. Like you work extra hard. Most people work, extremely hard to get them dug out. So you want to represent that on stage. But obviously with different federations, a lot of people like the difference between the UK DFBA and the BMBF. Mm-hmm. The UK DFBA like the scared dog. They like the tuck glute look. The BMBF, not so much. They like the more relaxed. And I can understand why, because, the feedback I got, look, it does generally, when you don't tuck your glutes in, it does show more flow in the back. It does show a bit of a ratio in terms of bringing in the waist as well. But I like tucking the glutes in. I like showing off that. I think that's a really good I just don't. Yeah, I'd love to be able to do it in the NBF and not get marked down for it.
I think you can use it smart if you use it as transitions. Like, so if you're going through your quarter turns and maybe just before you hit like a, the rear relaxed, you tuck them just to show that you've got that level of conditioning, and then you pop them back out. Because I think what Keith's is trying to say is like how hard it is to try and contract them whilst they're in that posteriorly tilted position. And it's almost impossible. Like, two people that I think can do it quite well is Dave and Mark, like Mark Claxton as well. I think they both do it quite well. Like, obviously Dave's glutes are just ridiculously massive as well, so it helps. But as you can see, like, his glutes look like they look cross-striated all the way up, because it looks like he's contracting them in, but he's not. Like, his hips are tilted back, but he's still got like that slight bit of tension on them. So I can see why it looks good, because when I tuck mine, which I did for my Italy show, it completely narrows off my entire back. And I lose shape. So I gain like a bit of a more conditioned look, but I lose loads of shape. Like Mark in this pose is like slightly on them. Again, it's just about having muscle density there, isn't it, really? So that you can sort of tilt those hips back and still contract them a little bit, and then they look like they're feathered.
It's just getting them dug out as well. Like, if you want them straight like that, they need to be dug out.
Yeah.
Because we see so many times you can just relax your glutes and they just look fucking like a soggy mess.
Yeah.
And you don't want that on stage, that's for sure. Speaking of Mark, absolute madman, some of the stuff that he does as well.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah. It does it ever make you wonder, like, when we look at some of obviously the best naturals and what they do in terms of training, do you ever sit there and just reevaluate, like, what am I doing? Like,
massively, mate.
Like, following sort of
I do.
The low volume, high frequency approach. Then you watch Rich Gazecki go in and do 4 sets of 15 reps on a hack squat and don't stop until you can't do another rep. I sit there and think, if I did that, would I have better results? I don't know.
Rich is quite in and out though, and he's obviously training body parts at a once per week frequency. Yeah. So his sessions are very, very quick, very, very quick. But the volume is absolutely absurdly high. Like, for me, that's that stimulus that I got out of training with him once. Like, I was in bits for 2 to 3 weeks because it's such a novel stimulus. Obviously, your body would get used to that at some point, but then I think personally, at some point, your ability to actually overload that workout is just gonna get so tough. Like, obviously, Keith, you train with a bro split, but still, you, like, especially recently, since like we discussed your whole squats and everything like that, you've brought your volume even further down, haven't you? Like, typically you'll auto regulate whether you do a second set on your deads and squats now, won't you?
Yeah, past few weeks anyway on deadlifts especially, has only been 1 set, so that's been like the 5s from like 290, 295 and 300, and then squats I have done a back off set. What did I do? When I first touched the 270, and I done it for the 3. When I came off it, I never felt like, don't get me wrong, like the 270 felt fucking horrendously heavy, but when I came off it, I never felt like completely broke. And it was a case of, right, I need to do something else. I need to do like another kind of set. So obviously I just backed off them. But last week when I done the 270 for 5, I only done that 1 set, and then I've started doing like an extra set. I've started doing 2 full working sets into like maybe a rest pause set on the leg press. And then if I'm doing like stiff leg deads, I'll only do 1 set, and then it'll be between 2 and 3 sets on things like extensions and obviously like lunges and things like that. So
with your extensions and Carl, something that I've noticed recently is like, do you treat them as like purely like a very much a mind muscle connection kind of exercise? Like, you don't obsess over trying to like pin the stack with more weight and add a 20 kilo plate to the stack? Because I don't know how much load you're using, but the leg extension you're using can't be that heavy.
Nah, it's so it's a hoist leg extension. So like the stack is like, I could probably stack it for like maybe between 15 and 20 reps for a decent set anyway. Like I always focus on obviously like a really good mind to muscle connection, obviously at the very top. Like I'll focus on taking like between 2 and 3 seconds at the top. And then like the eccentrics will be very slow, but to the point where I am able to drive it up very, very hard. And the exact same again, contract every single rep. So really the sets will stop when I can't obviously complete like a full rep. And then what I'll do is usually I would maybe go into something like partials. So between maybe like 6 and 12 partial reps, just to kind of like finish the quads off completely. Especially like when I'm myself and I can't get forced reps. Like I'm a very big advocate of like forced reps on something like a leg extension. So if I can't take anything like that, then I'll just pretty much go into partials or do something like a drop set, where I know. But even at that, like half the time I notice, like say for instance, I am doing the stack and I'll drop it like halfway. I'm maybe only taking like between 6 and 8 reps if I'm lucky on a drop, because it's still, you're that kind of like decked from your top set and the quads are just like fried. But I think it's just like up here, I know that like, I don't know, it's like it keeps up here sane if I do like a drop set or something like that. I would rather do like a drop on, I think, like a leg extension rather than like a rest pause, because if I'd done a rest pause on a decently heavy weight, I'd fuck it up. So I think I would take like 2 reps or something. And I don't know, on a leg extension, I like my reps to be decently high. Do you know what I mean? I would never bring it down anything lower than like maybe 6 reps or something. So
yeah, agreed 100%. So if you do start prepping this year, when do you think you'll start?
Well, if I'm competing this year, it would look like the first show would be the Grand Prix and then the Worlds at the end of the year. But I still don't know what's happening like towards the Worlds and things. Obviously we're hoping that things are going to be back to normal, but what's going to happen with like all this fucking vaccine passport things and all this, if that's going to go ahead, like fingers crossed it doesn't, but that would be the case. But then at the same time, I've also got in my head, why don't I just take this year and have it like a successful year of putting as much food in as possible? Like I've got to also remember that I am only, like, I've just turned 23. So if I even still take a year, I'll only be 24 by the time I'm competing. Like, so there's loads of things going through my head, man. It's like
you've got to almost think like, who have you got to beat next?
Yeah.
Like, obviously you've won a Pro Grand Prix, which is just ridiculous, and I'm sure that hasn't even set in yet. No, but I know what you're like, and you'll want to win a Pro Grand Prix against the best. You'll want to win a Pro Grand Prix against people who have won Pro Grand Prix and world titles, you know. So I think that's got to be a strategy, hasn't it? It's just like, who are you going up against next? And looks like David might be competing this year. Yeah. And obviously, you know, how old's David now? Like early 30s?
I believe he's 10 years older than me.
Yeah, so yeah, early 30s.
32, 33, I think, maybe something like that. I think anyway.
It's just, you know, like it's these things like that, you know, it's hard as you work. Like, yeah, to be honest, I think, you know, putting you and David side by side would be immense to watch with a 10-year age gap or whatever it will be. But, you know, there's some things that you just can't catch up sometimes without time.
That's it.
You know, and
that was one of the biggest things from the 2019 Worlds to just last year that I was told was the biggest thing that I lost out on was maturity. It was like by a few points at the Worlds the year before, and it was just down to maturity. So what can you really say to that? Like,
that's a good thing to lose, because you can just keep going.
I'm away to fucking work on my maturity for next year. Do you know what I mean? It's you're fucked with that. Yeah. So definitely.
The thing that I have in my head as well with you though is one thing that does maybe like worry me is like, from a perspective of strength gain, like the progressions you're making at the moment, mate, like, you know, obviously the sky's the limit kind of thing, but don't you think that doing the preps every year has allowed for you to maybe just have a bit more like safety with like joint integrity and things like that? Because obviously you still progressed in a prep and you've maintained a lot of your numbers, but let's face it, if you keep pushing your body weight and you push your food, you're going to ultimately get stronger than you would if you're dieting.
Mm-hmm.
So do you worry a bit that maybe having like a full year off, the strength gain potential might involve more obstacles with niggles and things like that?
I think it'll be like, there is always going to be that kind of bit in the side of your head, but I don't know. It's not something I've really took that much time to think about.
Yeah.
But I think mainly it's because as well that I wasn't 100% sure if I'm going to take the year or if I am going to compete this year, kind of thing. But I would also like to delve into a powerlifting meet at some point, just to kind of see where I fall.
Okay.
I think like that would be. I've not got like any interest in like strongman or anything like that kind of thing too, because I know for that kind of style I would need to go more into the training, because I've never done anything to do with that. Whereas because I already do like a lot of squat, bench and deadlift, it would be a case of like maybe auto-regulating some of the stuff that I do with it, like primarily that. But I don't really know when them kind of competitions of that are going to start happening again, obviously, for me to go into something like that. But then I've also thought, like, if I wasn't going to compete in bodybuilding this year, that would also kind of give me a goal to work towards, rather than just having my head right, I'm on my off season, I've just got to grow kind of thing. Like I like to also have something to keep like track on, whether it's just a lift in the gym or something like that, but it's just to kind of keep in it. Do you know what I mean? When you've got a prep to look forward to, you are focused for 20 plus weeks regardless. Like you'll literally eat and shit at the same time every single day. Do you know what I mean? When you like, you'll know how it is when you move on your off season, is you go from having this magic goal to like, right, what's next? It's until you set one. So I think that might be something.
Do you think with the progress you've made over the years that you've just consistently competed, do you think there's something in the natural like rebound post show that you've capitalized on, that very lean body composition, pushed up really effectively, dieted down, rinsed and repeat, that is maybe slightly more optimal than just continuing to stay in a surplus? Because I know you're very against mini cuts and things like that, so I don't imagine you'd be using many of them if you did take a year off.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing as well, because I always get asked like what my approach is to the like post competition prep, and I've always been like, obviously you get your first show, and no matter what anybody says to you, everybody binges after their first show. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I always remember, like, I did like push my food straight away, and I maybe was eating a lot of rubbish, but then the more kind of competition preps that I'd done afterwards, I would still push my food to like high, but I always noticed my food getting better and better and better, but I was still able to maintain a lot of calories. As much as like I was still getting a lot of things in like cereal and stuff that are pretty easy calories, I was still able to push it as far as possible. And then even like just last year, for instance, like by the time Christmas came, I'd been I'd finished competing for like 3 weeks or something. And obviously a lot of people would be against it, but my food was sky high, like, do you know what I mean? And fair, I think I was I don't know what I would have been up, maybe just over 20 pounds up. So like, I mean, it's not like 30 pounds in a week, which everybody knows is possible, but I was up like quite a bit straight away kind of thing. But that was always going to be the goal anyway, because I do believe in the rebounds of, especially being a natural bodybuilder. I like to get straight into it, don't like to fuck about. But actually the way it's always been. Yeah. So
the sort of 3 to 4 week period post show where you're still fairly lean, but you're on those extra calories, like your pumps, the sessions are just like unbelievable.
Off the chain.
And you sit there and think, I wish I could have this every single time I step in the gym.
Oh,
and then
imagine.
You get to that sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks post show, and then it starts to slowly just fade off, and then it's just become another week, another session, getting it done, sort of thing. Back to what you were saying about, you know, spending, like, even we spoke about this, AJ, like, realistically, you know, I've spent 2 year off season. AJ did 2 year off season before. I sit here now and I think, like, do you really need to take that much time off? Is it beneficial? And obviously, from just seeing, Keith, your progress year upon year, and you compete every single year, it just goes to show that you can make progress and still have a smaller off season. And something which I've kind of got myself into over this past sort of 6 months or so is I kind of felt a little bit lost after a year of gaining. I'm in a position where it's just like the same old sort of stuff. There's not really much going on, not really much to do. And obviously, you know, I not like a power lifting meet or anything like that. That's something probably nothing I would do. So I haven't really got anything to focus on. And that's kind of where I lose my way a little bit, is really deep into those off seasons where I lose that focus and that drive to continue doing this sort of same old sort of stuff. So I am starting to question as to whether these extended off seasons that a lot of us recommend is the way forward through doing that. So I can, honestly, I'm thinking about it. I really am thinking about it. It's what do you think on that, Keith? Do you feel like, for yourself, could you ever take, obviously, if you want my opinion on what you should do now going into the pro ranks is, obviously that pro ranks is a step up. I don't know if you've ever taken like a full year or even 2 years off. Do you think that would benefit you in terms of when you next stand on the a pro stage? Do you feel like that will benefit you more, or do you reckon you could still do what you have been doing for the past 4 or 5 years now, competing, and, you know, going to the pro ranks and have no problems at all? Do you still think that you can progress just as well, or taking that extra year might take you to that next level in terms of where you need to be in the pro ranks? Because I'm sure you're not going to want to, I'm sure you don't want to compete and just be a number. You want to go there and fucking win. And you've seen the BNBF boys, and you know how especially the pro shows. I've watched a few myself, and you know they are next level. What do you reckon in terms of? I know I waffled there, but what's your plan there with regards to that?
I think the biggest difference now is like my age. I know that I need to I know the muscle maturity is going to come, and that's what I've got to think about. But I think if I was like 29, 30, then now I would be more inclined to take that extra time off, because I know things would be a lot slower. But at the same time, like obviously the muscle maturity would be more than like there, depending on obviously how long I trained. But I think with my age now, that's one of the biggest things that's most concerning. I don't want to get back on stage, and I don't want it to be a case of you lost out because this person and that person's got 8 to 10 years on you. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to lose out on that. If that's the case, then I will take a year, and I'll try and obviously bring like a lot more. The older I get, obviously, the more beneficial it's going to be for me. But at the same time, I don't think I could take 2 years off. I think max would be a year, and then I will go for it, kind of thing. And then again, it'll be seeing where, you know what I mean, I stand with obviously the bigger ones. Like I'm Dave K, for instance, is the one that everybody, I think, you know what I mean, it's like he's like the main man when it comes to obviously the Pro Grand Prix. Do you know what I mean? He's like I would love to stand on stage next to Dave and see what it was like, and obviously compete against him in that. But at the same time, I want to also know that I am going to be a threat. I don't just want to, like you said, I don't just want to stand on and it be a case of, it's, do you know what I mean? Like obviously I got to compete within the Pro Grand Prix when I won my pro card last year, but I don't want to just be a case of like, it's like he's going to be up against this guy. Do you know what I mean? It'll be good to see him up against it. I want it to be a case of, right, this is going to be a good fucking lineup. Do you know what I mean? And I want to be in that lineup. I don't just want to be, do you know what I mean? It's like you want it all. You want to be first call out. You want to be like, you want people to be eyes on you. That's the thing. And I think because of that, it's why I also need to take into consideration, right, I'm 23, can like would I get more out of going straight in, or would I get more out of maybe taking an extra 6 months off season and then going in while I'll only be 24? Do you know what I mean? It's so much, man. It's like up here is like completely fried with just ideas and like all these conspiracies and it's just,
the thing is, competing's addicting. It's fucking addicting. I love the process behind it. You know, I could easily try and do that at least 2-3 times a year. I could easily go through those stages, but realistically, I'm not going to get much out of doing that. It is, I must admit, it is addicting. Yeah, that's the only. That's literally what I'm thinking about for you. I'm thinking, would it be more beneficial if you took a year out and come back, you know, next year, for example, and have a good attempt at a pro show and see where you're at, knowing that you've done a year off, or go for it this year, see where you are, and, you know, make that decision in terms of, right, okay, the feedback, I need more muscle I need more maturity. I'm going to take a year off. You know, it's quite a difficult one to pick at the moment in terms of just, I don't know. I'm sure you know exactly what you're going to be doing, but that's a bit of a pickle question for me to answer if I was you. That's for sure.
I think go again.
Yeah, I must admit,
go again. That's like genuinely. I think you should wait. You should wait until the start point of where you'd normally be beginning prep. Hence why I ask you that question first. And I think you should just do what you normally do. Think about how much progress you've made in the gym. And if you've made the progress that you've made in comparison to other off seasons, like similar progress, which I think you definitely have, strip it off and see what happens again, because I think you'll come down with more muscle yet again. And I think you'll be that extra little bit closer to the likes of Dave and things like that with maturity. And then you can use this year as a proper set point for, okay, where the fuck am I in a full lineup? Let's say you have a more, let's say you have more seasoned pros there. And then you can realistically say, okay, right, I maybe do need a whole year. And then you do take that whole year, the next one. But that's what I think, at least. Should we rate some lists?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Thoroughly enjoyed it last week. Thank you for everyone that's been posting and tagging themselves in some of the form. Oh,
we're starting here, Keith.
Because what a left to start.
Mr. Bastick actually sent this in for your personal review.
So you'll go first, Keith, mate. Yeah.
Anything that Dan posts, I have literally I just sit like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
same.
I do believe that he's actually when they say January 27th, because did he not go through a phase? I don't know. I think he was working with somebody. I don't know if he was working with Jordan.
He was working with Cuba. Well, he's working with Jordan. Then he worked with Cuba. And now he's working with Sass. With Sass, I think the training's a little different. I think he's doing most of his pulls towards the end. With Cuba, I think he was only allowed to pull like once every 10 days or something, because the fatigue was climbing so quickly. This obviously is 7 plate stiff leg for 4, which I think was, I think Jordan pulled like stiff, I think he pulled like a triple or something with it. So I think Dan purposely tried to get 4 or something.
He's literally just picking it up. There's no other way about it. He's just picking it up.
Khifee, I've got a question for you. In terms of eccentric control on any sort of hip hinge, like a stiff leg, what would you say about them? Would you say, obviously Dan's, the thing I would critique is I have no right to critique it anyway, but I would say maybe a little bit more control on those eccentrics. What's your thoughts on eccentrically controlling the deadlift? Do you think it serves a purpose? Is it a must? Or do you feel, for example, I've seen a lot of the tap and go stuff that you do. Do you feel like, in terms, especially from a bodybuilding standpoint, is that better than, would you rather do the tap and go instead of controlling the eccentric, or would you rather both? Or what's your thoughts on that in general?
I would, I don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of both, but I would only look to more so control my eccentrics if I was doing a step. I do most of my stiff leg deads out of a rack, and I won't touch the floor kind of thing. So because of that, say for instance, I do a pause in the hole, I will be more inclined to control the eccentric of that rather than doing a touch and go. I don't do much dead stop stuff. I think, again, if like the only way I look at it is depending what sort of rep range I'm going for as well. I always think about like the kind of fatigue ratio of that. Like if I am controlling the eccentric too much and I lose out on like 2 reps because I've done that, whereas if say for instance I'm doing like a dead stop, I will just get the weight to the floor, not like I wouldn't deliberately like slam it on the floor or anything, but I will control the weight to the floor, but just to the point where all tension's gone kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Just so I don't fuck myself that much. But like I said, like with stiff leg deads, I don't often do stiff legs like pulling off the floor. I've always really been one to come out of a rack and like pause just before the floor and obviously bring it back up. But at that would really be the only way that I would control the eccentric a bit more, just because of if I let it go, it's touching, if it's hitting the floor. Do you know what I mean? So
I when I'm thinking about it now, when I get towards the end of the set and I'm controlling the eccentrics, that's where I find I massively overthink it and break down, just trying to control those eccentrics. And I'm thinking, you know, I've had a decent 6 reps beforehand. Is it okay for the last 2 to be slightly sloppier just to get maybe an extra couple? I don't know. I've been thinking about that lately because I do break down and massively not confuse myself, but just overthink. Okay, eccentric, and then all of a sudden my hips are higher than what they should be. My back's rounding a lot more because the eccentrics just overtaking it a little bit. I don't know.
I spend too much time at the top, and that's what when I sent my sets to you, Keith, when I was deadlifting, I spent way too much time at the top, like trying to set up for my eccentrics. So obviously, I always set up at the top of my deadlifts. So I like set my brace there, and I was just spending too much time. And by the time I hit the floor, you know, my head was about to explode, and I just spent too much time with an isometric hold with, you know, my top set. Yeah. Keith, is there anything that Dan can improve here?
I genuinely but like I said, I'm not a one to stiff leg dead off the floor. But I wouldn't I genuinely, like, not even being a sucker, not even sucking up Dan's arse. I think everything was ideal in that, 100%.
He's got a decent back to go with it as well. Decent glutes as well, funnily enough, from all these pulls.
I'm looking for, is it Dan was his plans not to compete or get back on stage anyway? Is that still happening?
I think he's getting back on stage this year. Yeah, I think so.
That'll be interesting to see.
That'll be exciting. Right. Should we do some more deadlifts, because Keith's the king of the deadlifts? So let's try and take a few deadlifts. So we'll take Jord Fletcher. So obviously his name's Jordan, I imagine.
230 for a set of 7.
Make sure you watch it all the way through, Keith. Break it down.
Kind of awkward when it goes quiet, isn't it? We're all just sitting here trying to think about what to say.
Awkward.
Ooh. So go on, Keith, you go first, mate, in terms of feedback, as you're the deadlift king, buff.
Again, it's like, I think he was doing that belt as well. Yeah. It's like, it's one of the things, like, on a deadlift, whenever you see a lot of people looking down on a deadlift kind of thing, but once they get to the top, they're still looking down kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel as if I look down for a full deadlift, my chest will just dip and my shoulders will round to the point where you lose, especially if you're doing it like beltless. Don't get me wrong, if you're using a belt, you can still brace really hard and stay like nice and tight. But if my chest dips, I'll lose all like form of tightness and it'll just feel horrendous. So like I don't know, like you see like from the floor, like now still looking down until like the very top kind of thing. I would probably start looking up a lot quicker than that, just because of what I said. Like if your chest dips, your shoulders are going forward anyway, and if that's the case, that's all you're pulling with. But apart from that, it was really like, don't get me wrong, that there was still a lot of tightness maintained up until the last couple of reps here.
Yeah.
But
would you say the hitching towards the end is anything he can do to improve that hitch? Because
it's a hard one, because like probably just I'm obviously the last person to be able to say much about hitching. Like, don't get me wrong, some of my lifts have became a bit smoother now leading up to the end, because I used to do quite a bit of it, especially in my last couple of reps. But I think because it is only the last couple, like, to get the lockout, that's like okay by me. I would probably rather, like, because obviously I'm a big fan of deadlifts, I would rather see that rather than thinking. You see a lot of people think about it too much, and they will get to the point where they might start hitching and they'll just drop it as if it's not their kind of thing. When the reality is most of the work's been done, so just fucking lock it out and get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? Don't just bail it just because it's starting to get to a bit of a sticky point. It's always a hard part, the lockout.
I massively struggle with a lockout.
You do, George, don't you, man?
I used to, not as much anymore. I still do. It's still a weaker part for me, but yeah, just getting it above the knee, getting off the floor initially is a lot easier, but that sort of above the knee sort of portion is where I struggle massively. So yeah, I like I said, I've just been doing a lot more glute work, just strengthening my glutes, because even though they have been a stronger point of my physique, they actually aren't strong in terms of physically strong, and that's where I break down in these deadlifts and stuff. So I actually, one thing that's helped me is just doing one set of the Nautilus glute drive machine. I do that actually before my hip hinges now, and let me tell you, when I finish my stiff legs at the moment, I get a little bit of a glute pump from it, so I can tell that it's working. So I'm going to continue doing it for as long as I can, and my numbers are going up from doing that. So something like that might be worth doing if people are struggling to lock out above the knee, adding in a bit more glute work beforehand, for example, even just activating them before doing the set. Don't necessarily need to be actually doing some glute work.
Do you do any sort of things like rack pulls or anything?
No, he doesn't.
I'm not a big fan of rack pulls. I must admit, I'm not a big fan of them, and I'm sure AJ, you agree on that. Like,
yeah, I think the cross transfer to the lockout and the deadlift, if you're really trying to bring up your pulls, obviously there's benefit there, but from a bodybuilding standpoint, I think there are better exercises with a larger range and less fatigue for more range. So,
if I was to rack pull, I'd pull from mid shin. I wouldn't go.
Yeah, mid shin definitely.
Ideal. I see a lot of people do it. I mean, Keith, I've seen you pull pretty much from with your rack pulls. You pull about from knee height, don't you? Just
I would pull from either just under the knee to knee height. I would never pull over the knee or anything. I don't see anything from that. But I would look towards like on just under the knee to knee height, and that would be it. The way it kind of falls, like the very bottom of the rack, I like to be on the floor always, and the unfortunate part about like the rack is where the very bottom part of where you put the crash bars, it's like maybe just under my knee. So it would be a case of if I wanted it a little bit lower, I would need to stand on a plate or something like that, and I just feel too awkward whenever I'm standing on a plate. That's why I actually introduced block pulls for a few sessions, but I couldn't stay over the bar. I was wanting to pull the bar back.
Yeah.
The problem with being fucking short, you got to stand on. I can't stand on plates.
Oh, mate.
Like, I look like a twat standing on about 3 bumper plates because I'm fucking 5'6".
Yeah.
I'd rather do it, I'd rather do a pull off the floor.
One thing to wrap up that deadlift set as well, like one thing that I would comment on is I just thought the eccentric control was really, really nice across the whole set. I thought as a bodybuilding style deadlift, that was really, really nice, if we want to call it a bodybuilding style deadlift, like basically creating the maximum chance for hypertrophy from that set. It was a nice set. You create a lot of mechanical tension there.
You notice the connection with the lats as well was there from start to finish.
Yeah, he was locked in. It just looked nice, just looked pleasing. So
that's what I was going to say. It just looked like someone who's just got a good deadlift, and it's nice to look at. Some people just move so well within that movement pattern that it just looked really good. So I'd rate that. Let's do some ratings with these because we actually don't.
Okay, the deadlift, yeah.
I'd give that solid 8.5.
That's generous. Jeez.
I'd
say 8's a very, very good lift. So I'd say 8. I'd say 8 as well. I'll go with an 8.
Yeah.
What would you say, Keith?
I'm gonna have to go for an 8 because he never lifted his head quick enough.
There would be a 10 if you lifted the head.
If the head was up, it would have been a 10.
If anyone's lifting more than you, Khifee, you'll give them a 10.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't give anyone a 10 if they're not doing the same weight as you or more.
Yeah. So we're watching Kwyn's leg press now, which I believe is Jordan's training partner, or at least sometimes. So
we can't. Khifee, can you see it?
No, I can't see it. It's saying the video is playing in picture.
Oh shit! Sorry, guys.
Oh no, wait, that's it now.
Can you see it now? Is it big enough?
Yeah. Can you try and expand? Yeah, there we go.
Can you still see it?
Yeah,
yep.
Perfect. It's big enough.
Okay,
it's fantastic.
Smaller photos, just too small.
Okay.
Has he got wraps on?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that's one mark off. No, I'm kidding. That's just being a cunt.
He's maybe got knee issues.
Yeah.
But then again, you'd question as to why you want to put the Band-Aid over the knee issue.
I said the only time I've ever got a quad injury was actually using
wraps.
Wraps. That's the only time I've ever had a quad injury.
I just want to see that rep again.
So where's feet? Feet are quite, I'd
narrow.
say, yeah, quite narrow. I think that also, if you're looking to recruit a lot of quad on this, I'd say, that you need to put your feet a little bit lower, because when you look at how much knee flexion you get in there, it's probably more glute hamstring based. This is this a side bet? What leg press is this?
It's an off brand. It's one in Dubai. I'm not sure what it's just a typical 45-degree leg press. I don't actually know the brand of this one. It looks like just an off brand. Shall I make some comments first and then we'll go from there?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So I think, first of all, for a leg press, what some of the things we see go wrong so often is just no one's loading up the eccentric. No one's loading up the quads on the way down. We're just taking it down with the gravity of the sled and that's it. But Kwyn does a really good job at, like, you can see, like, even just in his like facial expressions and the way he's sort of setting up the brace, that he's really, really loading the quads. However, a mistake that I always make, even myself, is I find myself cutting range by bringing my body to my knees rather than knees to my body. So I tuck in like this and I pull myself to my knees. And you can see Kwyn's obviously done this here because his head position started a little bit further back. And then it's sort of brought a little bit further towards him as he comes down. See, his head position's changed. So I'd just say, just keep your head in one place. I don't think your head needs to be all the way back here, lying flat on the machine, but I'd like to see it a little bit further back so that he could get his knees a bit further back. As long as that doesn't compromise his lower back, which I don't think it would, to be honest. I think he could get a bit more without compromising the lower back. I like the fact that he's keeping his knees pretty soft at lockout, like he's not fully extending, which is another problem we see on the leg presses, is that you take pretty much most of the tension away from the quads at the top by just completely locking out. Another way to potentially stop that tension from being lost is banding it. So top banding it. So we create a bit more tension up there. I find that helps me keep my knees soft at the top. And then obviously he took it to a very, very good level of intensity. That's one forced rep. I'm pretty sure he goes for another. That's the second forced rep. And then he racks. So I'd say, 1 or 2 forced reps is applicable, as long as you've got spotters that you trust and a machine that you feel safe on. And yeah, just to cover the knee wraps, I'd personally ask him for the rationale behind using the knee wraps, as opposed to using knee sleeves, especially on a leg press. I maybe get it for like if you're trying to really chase down a big number on squats, potentially you want to get some rebound out of the wraps, but I would say that you might lose a little bit of tissue that you potentially build around that knee joint sort of, VMO. You tend to see people with really thick VMOs that don't really use much on their knees. But then again, if you've got knee issues and these help, then fair play. What do you think? What do you think? George, you take it and then we'll go for Keith.
Yeah, I must admit, like when I'm watching it now, the head position that you mentioned about, like some of the reps, he's actually pushing his head back. And actually, I had like that, for example, that rep there. I actually had a client once who strained the back when doing that, moving their head too much. So I would say, like AJ said, just stick to sort of one position with it. Either, I must admit, like I've tried to put my head back, but when you have like 10 plates each side on a leg press, it's fucking hard to keep that head back in that sort of position. I'm very leaning forward after a while. So I would stick to just leaning forward. I've never injured myself. I had any problems there from doing that. But yeah, in general, I don't like, just by knowing what happened to a client once and he strained, he was, he couldn't leg press for about 6 weeks because of it, just because he was moving about. So again, just staying a little bit maybe locked in terms of your upper body. That's what I would say to add to what everyone else has said. Other than that,
6 set though.
Yeah, 100%.
Keith, anything to add? I know that we've covered a lot.
Yeah, I like going towards like the positioning of his upper body. I think really it is just because like looking where, when you're on racket, where the handles are to hold on to, they do look very far away, which I think that because he's trying to, like, I know that I've seen a lot of people have actually had somebody behind them pushing them down to keep them like nice and tight. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to remain tight by holding on to them, and it just so happens that they are quite far away to the point where it is bringing his upper body a little bit, what you could say, too much over, because it could slightly be hindered, maybe like a an inch extra that he could get if he was back a little bit more. But apart from that, I would really just, it would be interesting to see why he uses the wraps. I don't know, I've never really been a big favour of using wraps on a leg press, really just because of, I would just kind of have the fear of maybe not getting like a little bit of hindrance on depth kind of thing, but really that was it.
I find when I wear knee wraps on a leg press, I get disgusting calf cramps that I cannot complete the set without like my calves cramp quicker than what my quads do. So I struggle to do that, to be fair. My gym,
especially if they are on tight.
Yeah. What I was going to say with the handle situation, my gym actually has these handles that you put over the actual handles. So you've got like a couple of inches higher. I actually use them. They do work really well. Might be if people, I don't know if they sell them online. I'm sure they do somewhere. But actually they have helped massively they're just little hooks that you put over that they have extra handles on them. But it's about that further up compared to the original handle. It's the exact same, but it just allows you, especially if you've got short arms like me, it allows you just to kind of lock in a little bit. Hey, Barney, let's watch Barney, one of my clients. When Barney started with me, I can't remember what he was doing in terms of RDL. He was doing literally half of this about a year ago.
That's mega.
So he's came very far, he spent, I think we've been working together 69 weeks now, 68 weeks. And throughout that, he's just been in the game phase. He hasn't dieted once yet because he's been on such a good run with everything that he's doing. I sit here and think, why am I going to stop this?
Just keep going.
Keep going until something breaks, change it. The only thing as a coach, this is what I've given back to him. Some of the reps you might notice a little bit too much knee flexion. These like overextend, like hyperextending at the top. Not a big fan of that, I must admit. Like I've just told him, just come up to a neutral sort of position. But one thing I want people to remember, and I'll say this, Barney's still very much in his early lifting days, so he's still got plenty more to learn, and he's doing a fantastic job. He's listened and rinse and repeat everything that I've said, and he's getting there. So yeah,
good man.
Feel free to add to it.
Keith, I'll let you take some feedback on this.
I think like you were saying, obviously he is still in his early days of lifting and things like that, but I believe all it is just a little bit too much knee flexion. But even at that, you can only really get better at that by getting stronger, because the only reason that that's happening is because of fatigue. Reality is he's getting a bit tired, and it is only happening at the end of his set. Like he's, I think that's really it. But again, like I was just saying, that's really just down to fatigue at the end of your set. I mean, what he's doing, 140 kilo. He doesn't look the heaviest, so I believe that'll be. Yeah. So, I never even fucking seen that. I mean, it's still a big weight to be doing. And obviously being quite in his early days still. No, it was a really good set. I think that was a really good set. That's really the only thing I could comment on. Overextending at the top, again, depends how long you're there for. But like you were saying, George, coming up to as far as you need to, is really all you need. But again, I mean, he's only going to really get better at that.
Yeah. I like I said, I was just going to say, I just don't think it provides any sort of additional benefit at all. If anything, I just think it applies a bit more of a risk sometimes when you are extending that far back with a heavy loading in your hands. I just don't believe it's worth doing it. Some people try and squeeze a lower back sort of thing. I don't do any of that shit. I don't believe in any of that squeezing and shit.
It's an injury risk more than anything else.
Yeah.
But, just to cap that off, obviously you guys pretty much covered most of the things. The main thing was the knee flexion, but from me, just keep it up. He sounds like he's doing a mint job, so
keep proud of him. Really proud of him.
We'll take one more and then we'll leave it for this week. So I think we're at an hour and a bit. So I think we've got more RDLs or these are similar like RDLs, almost a stiff leg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to comment on what we're trying to do here, because if I was saying, if he's trying to do a deadlift, then I'd say, well, your hips too high. Then if it's a stiff leg, then I say that's fine. But is it an RDL because he's not touching the floor in some reps? I'm slightly confused as to what he's directly going for here.
He hasn't. Hold on. So he's touching the floor on some of the reps,
and some of them,
and then he's not on the others. So my definition of an RDL is about mid shin. Yeah. And then my definition of a stiff leg is we're taking it all the way to the floor. And obviously as a result of that, the hip angle is going to change slightly. But for a RDL, if we keep all the reps just about where he's starting off here, I'd say it's a pretty solid set, to be honest. I'd say the range is decent. I'd say the control's looking good. I'd like to see a little bit more upper back tightness and a little bit more eccentric control towards the end, because you can see maybe he's got like that whole approach of having a number in his head. He said the only set today, which I was happy with, which maybe suggests that the session overall was maybe starting off a bit poor, so that then he tried to play catch up and just ran the eccentrics a little too fast, as we all do. I think we've all been there and done that. Tried to play catch up on a poor session. And to be honest, towards the end of the set, even though the eccentrics are speeding up, I'm sure Keith will agree with this, I think he has more. I think you have more in you, mate. I think the last rep looks so similar to like some of the first reps. The only difference was the eccentrics started to get sped up. I don't know why you're wearing that as well. Like that doesn't look like it's not. That's just not doing any favors at all. I think
it looks very high.
It looks like it's like just below his like sternum. So
it's like, you know, when James Hollinshead does the two belts, and he puts one belt up here, and he puts one bit. It looks like that a little bit. He looks like the top belt.
Yes, that's my feedback. What about you, Keith? What do you think?
I think as well, like obviously getting closer to the end of the set, it just looks like it goes from the start of this. Don't get me wrong, like this is going to come down to fatigue as well, but at the same time, I think as much as it just got to the point where it just looked like he was moving the bar up and down. It didn't look like it was getting hard, as in from like a strength point of view, but it looked like it like he had maybe lost connection with, say for instance, he was doing a stiff leg dead. It just looked like his back was just lifting it up and down kind of thing in one motion. But I think what he would potentially get more out of is maybe increasing the weight and dropping the reps, because obviously it looks like he's maybe had like a number of reps in his head that he's just wanted to hit, and even when he's maybe lost connection, he's still had that number in his head and he's just went for it kind of thing, if that makes sense. But outside of that, it does look like a decent set. Like say if he's doing like these kind of first few anyway, like they look nice and tight, and he is very much staying over the bar. So
yeah. George, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a very solid set. I'd say, get rid of the belt, especially, you look fairly long from what I can see here. So just continue filming your sessions, continue analyzing what you are doing, and see the beauty of filming yourself, especially when you're young and you don't have much training experience, is because you learn so much. Like I remember when I first recorded myself, it looked completely different to what I visualized in my head. And this is where you learn. And believe it or not, you might look back at this and go, fuck, I had one more. But next time you will make sure that you will get that next rep. So that's all I'd have to say about that, is just continue filming yourself, mate, and you'll learn a lot from seeing that. That's for sure. But yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
On that note, I think we'll finish up for this week, because I'm sure Keith's got meals to eat. George, you've probably got meals to eat.
Do?
And yeah, funnily enough, so have I. We're all bodybuilders, eh?
Forgot that actually.
All right. Well, thank you guys as always for using the hashtag. Thank you very much, Keith, for joining us again.
Thank you for having me on.
We'll have Keith on as many times as we can this year. Give us a little bit of a catch up on what he's doing, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, whatever. I'm sure we'll be up to exciting stuff, and we'll keep going with the rate or lift. So if you've got any sets that you want observed by ourselves, then please tag. I'm sure there'll be an influx on April 12th, and one more episode, and then we'll be there, guys. So looking forward to it. All right, chat soon.